Guys, I am so pumped after watching Michael Penix's NFL debut.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where you can start the season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, aka Mr. Drew, aka the Jolly Green Giant, aka Sirius Black, aka the Iron that sharpens the iron, aka Mr. aka. And I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that goes strong with me as everydayers that make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer, guys, subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. So today we are talking about the Falcons' impressive, bodacious, all the words, 34-7 win over the New York Giants. We'll talk about the defense's big day and how the Giants' offensive game plan played directly into Jimmy Lake's hands. We'll talk about if Washington's comeback win over Philadelphia has now crushed the Falcons' playoff hopes and dreams, but we got to talk about being pumped, right? The impressive, inspiring debut of Michael Penix against the New York Giants, where he finished 18 of 27, 202 yards and an interception. And that interception wasn't on him. That was Kyle Pitts bobbling a pass near the goal line just before halftime. So we'll blame Kyle Pitts, as we often do. All right, and this time it's legitimate. There was no, him and Kirk are on the same page. No, it was like this was definitely Kyle Pitts' fault. So, now that we got some clarity on that one, but what stood out to me was how balanced the Falcons' offense was, especially in the first half. They ran 34 plays, 16 called runs, 18 called passes. And I would have guessed, if you had told me, okay, the Falcons were run 34 plays in the first half, I would have guessed at least 20 of those would have been runs, as opposed to what we saw on Sunday. And so that showed me that this Falcons coaching staff had a lot of trust in Michael Penix, and that was a big concern with only 2 days of practice leading into this game, of full practice with the ones, but it did not, show on the football field. You saw the poise, you saw the leadership, the inspiration from Michael Penix in this game. We actually got play action concept. I think I counted on my notes, like at least 4 play action concepts in the first half. Would be 22% of their at least first half plays were play action, which is almost double what they were running play action from Kirk Cousins at the 13% prior to this week. And several of those plays, I think 3 out of the 4 play action concepts, they were attacking the middle of the field. Guys were running over the middle of the field, attacking sort of that intermediate area behind the linebackers in front of safeties. And I'm like, Zach, what are you doing? What are you up to, Zach? Like, this is not what you do. You opened up the playbook for Michael Penix, or were you just shutting down the playbook for Kirk Cousins? Because it's like, Kirk clearly couldn't run those plays, right? Like, could he? I don't know if that's true, right? We saw the split zone run action on the opening drive of the third quarter. Like, this was, I thought, was going to be their staple play action concept this year. Charlie Warner dropped that pass on that particular play. And we waited till week 16 to run it. And it's like, okay, Zach, I see you. So if you had a conspiracy theory that Zach Robinson was holding back his offense under Kirk Cousins, you definitely have fuel for that. But obviously, the takeaway for most people is going to be, well, he couldn't run those things because Kirk is incapable of running those things. I don't know if I agree, but hey, certainly he added fuel to the fire, right? Actions speak louder than words. And Zach Robinson, the Falcons offensive coordinator's actions, told you today that he did not believe that Kirk Cousins was capable of running the sort of basic play action concepts that we, back in August, we're like, oh, this is what they're going to do. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. This is what this offense is going to look like. And, Zach was like, sure, when Michael Penix gets here. So, hey, better late than never is basically my stance on it. And so, I think Zach is just proving himself to be an everydayer. He was tired of the slander that I had been giving him these last couple of weeks on the podcast, and especially on some of the extended all 22 reviews for the Locked On Falcons insiders. If you want to become one, join the link in the description below, where I was breaking down the film and I'm circling all these wide open, middle of the field stuff with the play action that they were calling and whatnot. And Zach being like, I refuse to have receivers run routes into that area of the field until today. And all of a sudden this offense clicked. And it's like, yeah, man, this is what this offense should have been all season long. So I'm not going to belabor the point. It wasn't, right? Question is, couldn't have been, or just it didn't be that version of the offense. And we'll just go with it didn't. It wasn't that version of the offense. And so we got to take what we can get. Beggars can't be choosers, all that and more. So if this is what this offense is going to be for the rest of the season and into the future, as Kirk might say, do you like that? And I would say today, I do like that. Yes, Kirk and Zach and Mike, I do like what this offense looked like. So, didn't love the meandering path we took to get here, but hey, at least we're here. So I will take what I can get with this football team. And, again, on top of the thing that perfectly summarizes Michael Penix's day is, we had the Kirk Cousins chaos meter, and I'm workshopping this, guys. So you guys let me know if you like this. This is the Penix pulse meter, right? Initially, I had the Penix panic meter, and then a Locked On Falcons insider by the name of Alex was like, make it a pulse meter. That sounds a little bit better. And it was like, yeah, because the panic meter was like, is Michael Penix the quarterback of the future? And it's like, no, let's make it the pulse meter, right? We got to, especially with a player like Michael Penix, we got to worry about the blood flow, right? It's very important to have that blood flowing with Michael Penix, right? So we're still workshopping it, but here's what I've come up with so far, right? And same 5 levels, right? Or similar 5 levels. Let me say that. Slightly different, right? Level 1 is the pulse is barely there, right? We're very concerned about Michael Penix and whatnot. It's like he was like, did he even show up or whatever? And number 2 is it's just a steady, solid pulse, nothing to be concerned about. I think that's what Penix was today. But level 3 is that strong pulse, like the adrenaline is going. That's sort of stand-in for what we saw with Kirk Cousins chaos, with the peak version of Kirk Cousins for that level 3. And that's the ideal pulse that we want from Michael Penix. And then level 4 is the pulse is too high. It's too high, right? And now we're in the point where I think we're going into cardiac arrest, right? That was the Kirk Cousins being chaotic level. This is the cardiac arrest for Michael Penix, right? And then level 5 is he dead, right? He's DOA, right? No pulse, he's dead. Hopefully we'll never get to level 5 with Michael Penix at any point. So still workshopping this. Another Locked On Falcons insider, also named Aaron, suggested less of, we don't have a plucky name for it, but just sort of evaluating Penix on certain levels in terms of his rookie status. Level 1 is a typical rookie. Level 2 is, I think we got something. That's what I would give Penix in this case. Level 3 is rookie Matt Ryan. Is that you? Or level 3 is like, oh God, no, it's Desmond Ridder all over again. And level 5 would be, sorry, Kirk, please come back. So I welcome your feedback on where we should be, the Penix pulse meter, all these various things, any suggestions you guys have for me. We'll see what the film says. But again, I think in both instances, level 2 being a steady pulse, or level 2 is, I think we got something when it comes to evaluating the rookies. This is the thing. And I joked with the Locked On Falcons insiders last week that, once Penix gets on the field and his big time arm, is going to fix all the Falcons' problems, right? I was being sarcastic when I said it and talked about how, suddenly the Falcons are going to be able to execute in short yardage because Michael Penix's big arm just allows, all these open run lanes and whatnot, as sarcasm. But guess what? The Falcons were really effective in short yardage today. So it's like, okay, we'll take it, right? They were 6 of 7 on short yardage runs, any runs that had 2 or less yards to go. That 7th play they would have had successful on was wiped out by a Judon and hold. And so, the skeptic will sit here and tell you that the reason why the Falcons were able to move the ball in short yardage is because the Giants were like 24th in short yardage defense heading into this game. But we know, the true ball knowers know, that Michael Penix was the true catalyst for this short yardage game to be successful. So it was nice, all that to say, to have a relatively stress-free Sunday, right? Where it's like the first quarter and a half of this game didn't quite go where we wanted it to go. But after that point, things really turned things around, and it was kind of stress-free. It was just like relaxing. It's like Falcons are taking care of business. The Falcons are living up to their expectations. They're beating one of the worst teams in the NFL in a way that, we think this team should be capable as a playoff caliber team, and dominating this matchup. So it was nice to be stress-free actually watching the Atlanta Falcons play football, rather than what normally happens when we have a stress-free Sunday. That means the Falcons either played on Thursday, they play on Monday, or they're during their bye week or whatnot. So first time this has been a case in a very long time, probably like 5 or 6 years or something like that, where you just was like, you could just take it easy watching the Falcons on a Sunday. So that is owed all 100% to Michael Penix. So the first 1.5 quarters, it looked like it was going to be kind of that back and forth, low scoring type of game that I kind of thought it was going to be heading into the week. But then, that moment, that sort of game changing moment was Jessie Bates cheating. And well, he wasn't cheating, but he got the pick six. He probably was cheating, actually. Now I sit here and think about it, but he got a pick six, and that was all she wrote. And the Falcons never looked back from that point. And so that will get us into a conversation about the real stars of the show. Beyond Michael Penix, it was the Falcons defense with a historic day, and we'll break that down as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. So today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. And if you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks because it's the most easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports. Prize Picks is here to make your holidays bigger and brighter because now you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. In this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million plus in rewards during Picksmas, and they're giving you 2 free picks this December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks is going to make it easy to cash out because you can win your money and get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. So, Penix with his debut, the beautiful thing about Prize Picks is just you versus the stats, not you versus anybody else. You just pick more or less on at least 2 stat projections. So if you went, over, more or less on Michael Penix's stat line or Darnell Mooney's stat line or Bijan Robinson's stat line, that's how you can win. It's that easy. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you just play $5. You don't even have to win. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. So we got 2 pick sixes in this game, and I saw the graphic during the game. This is the first time that's happened for the Atlanta Falcons since November of 1983, 41 years ago. And I was barely alive. I am that old, guys, that I was alive when that happened. I was barely alive. I was an infant back then. But Jessie Bates had that first one that came on the Giants' 3rd series of the game. You saw some pressure from Caden Ellis up the middle. Drew Lock stared down Wan'Dale Robinson, and Bates read it perfectly, taking it 55 yards to the house. Again, I don't think he was cheating, but my recollection is that he could have traveled with somebody else, and there was probably a wide open receiver elsewhere on the field. But Jessie Bates was like, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So he read Drew Lock's eyes perfectly, jumped that throw, and took it to the house. And then Matthew Judon had the second pick six that came on the opening drive of the 3rd quarter. That was kind of the knife to the chest to this Giants team that put them out of their misery. You had a pair of blown blocks. Zach Harrison gets upfield, tips the pass from Drew Lock, and Judon catches it and then races 26 yards into the end zone for a touchdown. Judon also added a sack later in the 4th quarter, got a great jump using a speed rush. He timed the snap perfectly on that particular play. He was flagged like 2 or 3 plays prior to that for jumping off sides, trying to time the snap a little bit earlier, but that was 1 of 3 sacks the Falcons had today. 1 other sack came from Arnold Ebiketie midway through the 2nd quarter. He won on the speed rush. The other one was Caden Ellis, where he beat Greg, I think, Van Roten, the Giants' right guard. He got a sack strip. AK recovered that right before halftime as well. So, when you look at this defense, the standouts were Jessie Bates with the pick six, Arnold Ebiketie with the fumble recovery and a sack, Caden Ellis with a sack and a forced fumble, as well as frequent other pressures, and Matthew Judon getting a sack in a pick six. Those guys were the MVPs, but you also saw, solid play elsewhere for the defense throughout this game. The secondary held up really well. Early in this game, you saw A.J. Terrell shadowing Malik Neighbors for a large chunk of the game. Malik Neighbors was held in chunk during that chunk of the game. He did finish with like 7 catches on, I think, like 14 targets and 68 yards. But a lot of that production came in garbage time after the Falcons had built up their 34-7 lead in the 4th quarter. And so, I think the Falcons defense played outstanding. I think a big part of the Falcons defensive success was owed to the Giants never really trying to establish the run. That their lone scoring drive in this game came on the 2nd series of the game. That was the one drive where the Giants were trying to run a balanced offense and running the football. They ran it 7 times on a 14-play scoring drive. They had 100% success rate on those 7 carries, averaging 4.7 yards per carry on those plays. And again, I'm not saying this to take away from the Falcons defense, but this to me is like why Brian Daboll deserves to be fired after the season, because basically outside of that one drive, the Giants' run pass balance was completely out of whack. They threw the ball outside of that one drive 35 times to 6 runs. And again, you could say, well, they got behind. That's why they threw it. No. They were completely out of balance well before this game got out of hand for them, right? They didn't get down 2 scores until right before halftime. And again, if you look at their first 3 possessions outside of that one scoring drive, they had a pass balance of 11-2. They threw the ball 11 times. They ran the ball twice on those first 3 possessions. And we talked briefly about this in the lead up to the game, talking about this in the crossover Thursday with Locked On Giants host Patricia Traina. Obviously, we didn't get to do as much talking about the sort of specific matchups this week, just because, we were all, pumped up for Penix with the hype going into this game. But the Giants had the type of run game that could really give the Falcons problems in this game because they could force them to play nickel with their 3 wide receiver sets and run between tackles. That's been the style of run that has killed this Falcons defense all season long, right? Every team that has had success running the football against them throughout the season has pretty much employed that style of run game. And the Giants used it on that one scoring drive and then never again the rest of the game. And so I'm not saying that to take away from the Falcons defense. The Giants had to me a bad game plan. They played into the Falcons' favor. The Giants decided to be one-dimensional, and the Falcons took advantage of that, right? If they're going to be pass, and again, this is why we're sitting here happy about the change for this Falcons defense. You're going to be pass behind a very suspect offensive line with the quarterback that spent most of the year as your number 2, but really was your number 3, because when you had the option to go to him after Daniel Jones got hurt, you decided to go to Tommy DeVito. If you're going to just throw the ball every single down with essentially your 3rd string quarterback behind a bad offensive line, that's a terrible game plan. And then Falcons absolutely took advantage of it, as we want to see, right? You've seen this Falcons pass rush come alive these last couple of weeks, right? 16 sacks in the last 4 games. Depending on what metric you look at in terms of sack percentage or overall sacks, that's either basically makes them the number 1 or number 2 pass rush in the NFL since the bye week. And so you're playing into our strengths, and the Falcons absolutely took advantage of it, and that's why they were able to dominate this game so thoroughly. So we love to see it. We absolutely love seeing this Falcons defense dominate in the ways that they did on Sunday. And again, Giants don't have a great team, and they played to their weaknesses they played to the Falcons' strength as opposed to the Falcons' weaknesses. And again, we absolutely love to see that. So we will take what we can get with this Falcons defense. And this was a great performance from this Falcons defense. And so it'll be fun to go back and look at the film of not only the Falcons offense, but the Falcons defense. And so this is kind of what we wanted to see from this team all season long, where we had pretty much all 3 phases, maybe a couple of issues on special teams, but you had some positive plays on special teams to make up for, Riley Patterson's missed kick, but you got sort of all 3 phases. And clearly guys, we all know who's responsible for that. It's not Raheem Morris. It's not Zach Robinson. It's not Jesse Bates. It's not Matthew Judon. It's not Brian Daboll. It's all because of Michael Penix, baby. So we are absolutely pumped to see it. So the question is, of course, despite this complete performance, this completely dominant performance from this Falcons team, is it too little too late? Because did their playoff hopes go bye-bye after, Washington got their win on Sunday in addition to the Falcons? We'll break that down as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up that much needed win, even if the Falcons aren't getting the win that you want, right? They got the win they won, but the playoffs, all that stuff. But you can take advantage of it, man. You can bet any types of ways at FanDuel. Who's going to score that touchdown, right? You probably won a lot of money if you went defensive touchdown, Jesse Bates. How many points a team is going to have, not just who's going to win the game. And you can do this not just for the NFL. You can do this for the NBA, college football playoffs, or ongoing. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com today and again, that's FanDuel.com for a chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So what is next for the Atlanta Falcons? We really needed Washington to lose to Philly today. And that would make next week's Sunday night matchup between the Falcons and Commanders, in Washington, a really decisive game, right? The winner would have potentially the tiebreaker over the other if those two teams finish with the same record. You still need Washington to lose a game in order for the Falcons. You need the Falcons to run the table, not only win next week, but then beat Carolina in the season finale. And you need Washington to lose to the Dallas Cowboys. So really the Falcons' playoff hopes are really stand in the hands of Cooper Rush. Now, as I record this, guys, the Sunday night game between the Dallas Cowboys and Tampa Bay Buccaneers has not happened, but you not only, in order for the Falcons to have a chance at winning the division, you need Cooper Rush to take care of business tonight against the Bucs. And you potentially, in order for the Falcons to still have a shot at that 7 seed, you're going to need Cooper Rush to take care of business in Week 18. So we need, the non-Andy Dalton, redheaded Rocket, whatever his nickname is, to really sort of save our season. And I have no doubts in Cooper Rush. He has come through strong for me many a times this season. He's probably going to be, someone that I'm going to invest in on Prize Picks and whatnot. So I believe in. Of course, I say that now, and then you guys know what happened on Sunday Night Football, and you're like, Aaron, that was the dumbest thing you could have said. And you're absolutely right. I jinxed it. But, we'll have to sort of see what take care of business. But right now, the Falcons playoff hopes are pretty much on life support. You can only control what you can control. The Falcons, 4 weeks of struggling prior to this week, or 5 weeks, if you want to throw in the Raiders game as well, means that the Falcons are no longer in control of their destiny. So their playoff hopes aren't dead, but as I said, they are on life support. So, it is a thready, barely there pulse if we're going to go to the Michael Penix pulse meter, a level 1 sort of thing. So we'll see what's what on that. But obviously, all we can really control right now is just sort of how well Michael Penix plays. And these next 2 games are going to be a good opportunity to continue evaluating the Falcons' young franchise, game-changing quarterback. And maybe that will lead to the playoffs if certain other things go according to plan. So hopefully this game is a win that the Falcons can build on, including Michael Penix. They have a big road test next week against Washington. We know that this team has struggled against playoff caliber teams, that if the playoffs started, tomorrow, the only win that they would have this season against a playoff team would be against the Philadelphia Eagles all the way back in week 2. So hopefully with the second and the last week of the season, we can have that mirror and get a second win next week. But there are, of course, going to be challenges. There's a reason why Washington is in this position and the Falcons are not. Jayden Daniels having a very successful rookie season. We know the challenges he's going to bring with his athleticism and mobility. Scary Terry, as in Terry McLaurin. You trusted AJ to shadow Malik Neighbors today. Can you trust AJ to shadow Terry McLaurin next week on Sunday Night Football? We know that AJ tends to struggle mostly against big physical wide receivers. That is well documented. But the one sort of small, fast guy that AJ typically does poorly against, despite doing well against most of them, has been consistently Terry McLaurin. So that is going to be a challenge for him if the Falcons choose to do that. And again, I think the Falcons should, this is why you paid AJ, over $20 million a year to go out there, and where Terry McLaurin is going to be. He spends like 75-85% of his snaps lined up on one side of the field. So you know what's coming with that. So hopefully we'll see how the Falcons respond to that. The defense, if they can build off of what we saw today on Sunday. And Washington's defense by no means is some dominant unit, but they've primarily been good enough, right? They've been good enough to get the wins with the offense performing the way that they have been. And so basically I'll sit here and say, like, Washington is kind of the team that we wanted Atlanta to be in a lot of ways, with a, high caliber offense, top 5-ish offense, an explosive offense that can score in bunches, and a complementary defense that is going to allow you to win a lot of games. Now, the Philly game is their most impressive win of the season. Just like this Giants game is arguably the Falcons' most impressive win of their season as well. Now, you put an asterisk besides this Washington win because Jalen Hurts got hurt, I think, on the second series of this game with a concussion. And so even then, like, you imagine, I think they were driving for their second score of the game, and I think Kenny Pickett finished out the drive to get the score. But, you wonder if this game would have been different if Jalen Hurts had been healthy for the entirety of the game. Probably. I think that's safe to say. So even this impressive win for Washington gets an asterisk. And, I'm sure Locked On Commanders host David Harrison is like, yeah, the Falcons win over the Giants gets an asterisk because it's the stinking Giants. Right. So, we'll see who can, come supreme next week and decide, which team is actually more impressive. So that's going to be a big matchup. We'll see how Penix handles it, but this game definitely gave me a lot more confidence going into that second matchup next week against Washington. And so it'll be, as I said, fun to dive back into the film in the coming days on both sides of the ball, which has not been the case, especially for these last several weeks, where it's just like, yeah, I've enjoyed the defensive film these last couple of weeks, but not the we're ignoring the Minnesota game. Did not enjoy the defensive film with that one. I enjoyed watching the front seven in that game. But it is nice to sort of be back and being like, okay, this offense is doing some things. This offense is definitely doing some things. So we'll see if they can build off of that and play the game of their seasons next week against Washington. We'll also keep an eye on Drake London. He exited the game and I think the second half with a hamstring injury. He was already battling a knee injury going into this game. So that's going to be important into this Washington matchup if the Falcons aren't sort of firing on all cylinders. But the Penix Mooney connection looked really good on Sunday. So, hopefully they can continue to build off of that. So, guys, definitely enjoy your week. Don't let your resentment over the previous, 14 games get to you. Just, take what you can get with the Atlanta Falcons. And so I would appreciate all your suggestions as we workshop, the Penix pulse meter. I had a Locked On Falcons insider suggest the Penix pump meter, which was not safe for work with his suggestions. I definitely would have got a phone call from Locked On if I went with that one. I know some of you guys do take your kids to school listening to this. And so, we we got to skate that line. Oh boy. But, I welcome all your feedback on sort of, what's going to take the place of, the Kirk Cousins chaos meter full time. We went with the Penix pulse meter today. Let me know if you like that. If you have any suggestions, leave a comment. Let me know. You can email me at lockedonfalcons@mail.com as well. And of course, I'm always welcome for your best puns, when it comes to Michael Penix. You know what types of puns I'm talking about. I need your best puns. Like, I'm very good at watching film. I have a couple of puns, I got a nice suggestion from a Locked On Falcons insider, Michael Penix thrusted the Falcons into the win column, those types of things. So let me know. Leave a comment. Hit me up via email. We need to get your best puns out there because we're going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off. So we should be joined by Dave Choate of the Falcoholic tomorrow to get his thoughts on this brand new era of Falcons football. And if he's like, is it Matt Ryan? Is that you? Or are we getting that type of thing? We are absolutely going to hype this thing up, guys, because again, beggars cannot be choosers, and it may all come shattering and falling down next week on Sunday Night Football. If it is, it is what it is. At least we had these next 6 days to enjoy this win. So that's why I say enjoy this win. Take your victory laps, go dunk on everybody. Tell me how I was an idiot for defending Kirk Cousins these last 6 weeks and all that stuff. By all means, let me have it. But also, leave your best Penix puns, suggestions, and any sort of workshopping for the pulse meter and whatnot. So that is going to do it for us, guys. Really appreciate it. Enjoyable win. Have a great week. We'll be back tomorrow with Locked On Falcons. Continue to make us your first listen. Check us out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, if you want to get the lowdown on what happened elsewhere around the NFL, Locked On NFL is going to give you 2 shows daily to get you wrapped up on this Week 16 action. It is all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.